welcome everyone. Welcome to 45th session of MGD, and we have the most beautiful Pradipta here today. And thank you, Pradipta, for accepting this invitation and deciding to share your story with us. And we have equally beautiful Shusmita Munshi here, whom I am seeing after many, many years. And she's graciously accepted to do this talk with Pradipta. This talk is going to be full of excitement and full of things that we would really want to hear. Pradipta, as I know, is one of the most courageous women I've met. I was always scared of knowing anything about Pradipta in the beginning, and then when I started sitting around Pradipta, he would tell me things, and I became more and more interested in life, his life, and her life together. And thank you, Pradipta, for being here. And I'll hand over to Shusmita and Pradipta, and thank you once again. And I hope you enjoy this. Over to you guys.
Hi, I'm Shusmita, and a couple of folks here who I'm not familiar with. So I'm Shusmita, batch of 1997 SLPP, and I'm in conversation with the tightest touche on campus in the late 90s, who's very aptly called Podu, which in Bangla loosely translates into your posterior. Okay, I lost everyone. Is it intentional? It is. Okay. Anyway, at this juncture, I think we should have some talia or at least canned applause. Before we just jump into this session, I just want to say thank you to Sajid and everyone that's really involved in MGD. For someone like me who this year, to be honest, finds myself marooned on a little island, often working from home, but really far away from home and my loved ones and people I went to college with and the design scene in India. MGD has been this reconnection and a retrospect of sorts. So go Sajid, go MGD. Okay, with that, now the star of the show, Pradipta. My first memory of Podu is from ragging, possibly 22 years back. And my first impression was that of fluidity and a rather unique sex appeal. And the fluidity was, in the motion. And in Bangla, we say hilte dulte chola, fluidity of speech, the way he used his hands and, a flick of his head and the way he used his eyes. And over the next few months, as I got to know Podu, you realize there's certain fluidity in his thought process. He would take on Tridip in SLA and at the same time be completely cool on making friends with an auto driver. And very often you'd bump into him in the computer labs on a really rickety old machine, which was right up front near the door. It was probably a Silicon Graphics or something with a broken mouse. But he was using that mouse and very coolly, producing these kick-ass drawings. Which was awesome. Guys, as someone who be hearing background, so just go on mute if you can. Yes, you're on NID. Will you go mute? Okay. And then over the next few years, as Helen for a VC dance show for Monsoon Fiesta. But I think I really got to know him, to be honest, towards the end of NID when we all got kicked out of campus because we were all due with our pre-dips or our dips possibly. And I think I can say this for a few others from my batch. We formed this certain form of sisterhood. There was commonality, there was shared stories. And I think that's what sticks in my head. Fast forward 2 decades, this Monday I get this call from Podu saying, "Acha, tu ki korbi? Amar sathe onushthan means will you do the show with me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, let's go for it." So we started chatting on, what to say, what should one say, and very soon, an hour later, we were like, okay, what not to say, because there's just so much to talk about. Should we talk about the design educator? Should we talk about the artist, the filmmaker? Or should we really talk about the LGBTQ plus champion? So there is a lot to say. Why don't we kick this off with just, first of all, Actually, before we get started, so Pradipta identifies himself as a female. So his references are she and he. I often get it mixed. I keep switching references between genders. But Podu, just one thing, even if irrespective of what I say, in my head you're always a she. Bas bura mat manna if I'm politically being incorrect and calling you something else. So with that, let's kick off. So Podu, let's look back at Kolkata first. Tell us about the early years, Ma, Baba, Para, Porshi, all those early influences, art college. What really went into making of Podu before he arrived on campus? So let's start with that.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Sushmita. My God, you made me feel very nice. Thanks to you. Thanks, Sajid, Anuj, and everybody who made it possible. And Anuj, you said that I said you thanked me for saying yes to it, but did I actually have a choice? Or did Sushmita had a choice to say no? We didn't. Right. Okay. So, Sushmita, thanks for underlining the he she aspect of it, because I suppose the MGD is about a journey, right? A journey of a creative individual, an artist, a designer, whatever one may call or identify as, through work. But for me, I think it's both. Not only work, but identity. I mean, what I identify as who I am today. So it's that journey, literally, not only metaphorically or through my creative endeavor. Yeah. So let me share with you guys the whole journey.
Hey, Podu, can you get closer to your mic? There's a bit of a windy feedback.
Okay. Then let me just hold it like this. Is it okay? Okay. So in Calcutta, I went to a school called, not a very well-known school, called Cathedral Mission High School, which I think Sushmita, Kritika, they might know. It's a bang opposite Bhavanipur Education Society, because that college is very, very well known, but my school is not, still isn't. But I think the best thing about the school is, I think it's probably one school in at least this part of the world which not only nurtured but treated us, the so-called strange students, boys, in a absolutely boys school, who were effeminate. And as Sushmita said, na, we would always talk hat nariye nariye and all. So they actually gave us five-star treatment, as if we were four friends. And not all of us. I mean, three of us identified as women, as girls, and one probably identifies, still identifies as gay man. But then we were, and it's a Christian missionary school. Still, we were never punished, nothing at all. Rather, suppose, say, we used to carry makeup kit to school. Can you imagine in 80s when we were growing up, our reference points of makeup used to be Sridevi and Rekha and their atrocious eye makeup, where you have gold, pink, blue. I mean, you name the color and they're like wearing all of it, right? So that was our idea of eye makeup and looking beautiful, because the one is trying to be like them, na? Sridevi or a Rekha. So we would buy all these color coals and eyeshadows and we'll carry it to school. And during tiffin break, we would all get together and we would start applying. So one teacher someday, one fine day, will come and take it away as a punishment. So we could just go and tell another teacher that they couldn't niche and all. See, so and so sir has taken it. Can you get it back? And he would do that. So I mean, things like this is not possible. I mean, now looking back, I think you don't. I mean, it was strange, you know. And when one is talking about 80s, so I was, I think, supported in school, and thankfully I got similar friends. And I think that made me the empowered individual, if at all, that I am today in terms of, sexuality or identity. Now, coming to um, home, well, I also come from a very middle class family. I was born into, and so my father comes from a very highly educated background, and my mother comes from a business family, and she hated studies. So she never finished even eighth standard. Can you imagine? But she identified me and my other three friends in school as she would always treat all four of us as girls. And at times, many a times, we used to feel very embarrassed because so after school, when we all went to college, so we separated, like all four friends. So, and our parents would be, mothers would be visiting each other. So when one friend's mother would say, Ranjita's mother, Ranjita is a critic, also knows her. She is now a very, very, very well known trans activist in Calcutta. So Ranjita's mother once told my mother, दीदी अभी तो लड़के जवान हो गए हैं, अभी तो लड़की ढूंढना पड़ेगा. My mother said that, अरे ओरा तो मैं, ये तो, I mean, these are girls, we'll have to look for boys. And then the other two friends, they said, my God, auntie ki मुंह में कोई tax नहीं है, she speaks anything she wants to. But now looking back, I think, I mean, obviously, I mean, honestly speaking, even I was a bit embarrassed because it's all about a journey, right? When in 80s, when we were growing up, we were in school, we did identify as girls, but then the term transgender never existed then. So we would, I mean, the default sort of term or concept that existed was homosexual man, right? Much later, we had yet another word called gay. And all four of us, at least three of us, we always used to be very embarrassed to tell anybody that, oh, I'm gay, because there was certain sense of embarrassment, because I suppose in our heads we were very attuned to the heteronormative ways of making love, right? Because in my head, I'm a woman, and without the fact that I'm biologically, I mean, I was not born in a woman's body, but that did not really matter. And hence, when you are talking about a woman having, I mean, getting intimate with a woman, or a man, biological man, getting intimate with a biological man, was not exactly what I especially uh, was comfortable with, because I was certainly not that, because I am a woman who likes men who like women, right? So, and later on, that is certainly one of the biggest problems in terms of finding a companion or a partner. That becomes yeah, but anyways, that's a separate story. But so, yeah, in my house, nobody really stopped me from, many a times my mother would catch me applying mascara before I'm going to school. And she would obviously shout at me. But the reason that was given to me was not that you're a boy and you should not wear makeup. She'll be like, তুমি দেখেছো আমাকে কখনো মেকআপ লাগাতে? Did you ever see me wearing makeup? Skin kharab ho jata hai. Your eyes would go blind. I mean, she had probably this phobia about makeup. I don't know from where and how she developed that. She never used to wear makeup. I mean, shadi mein jana hai, the only thing she would wear is like little lipstick. That's it. No kajal, nothing. Just little lipstick and a bindi. That's it. And a nice sari. So her the way of scolding me would be because the fact that your eyes might go blind with mascara and all, but it was never because I was a boy child and I was a boy and I should not be wearing makeup. So, and talking about my father, well, I can just keep blabbering about my father for the whole day, because I think it was very traumatic as a child. As a child, it was very traumatic. Why traumatic? Not in a very bad or negative way, but so my father was very different from the other friends or neighbors. all the other kids I was growing up with, not like their fathers who would take them for movies, Hindi films, or restaurant mein khana khilane leke ja rahe hain, and he'll play with them. Well, my father was not like that. Dining table pe one question he would ask, and if I'm not able to answer the question, then he'll tell me how disgustingly uneducated I was, and how I was going to be I'm good for nothing because I have no knowledge. And even if it would started from one recipe or whatever khana that we are consuming, it'll the lecture will go on for an hour, and it'll cover everything from world history, politics, everything. Oh my god. So I really had a very traumatic childhood. That we would get newspapers, several newspapers, right? Sushmita, in Calcutta those days, every Bengali middle class household would have more, at least 3 newspapers, huh? And then suddenly my father would ask that, oh, acha, this is what happened in this country. What is the capital of this whichever country? I'll be like, oh, he's like, what's the point of going to school? You don't even read the newspaper. You don't even have general knowledge, nothing. So overall, as a child who was highly influenced by Hindi cinema, of course, the glamour, glitter, and Helen, not to speak of, because those days in 80s, the Bengali cinema would still be made from uh, Bengali literature, which would often talk about the middle class or the rural Bengal, the lives and people. So hence it lacked the glamour and glitter that the Hindi films offered, like the colored cinema with Helen dance numbers, and then they're going to UK and Switzerland and singing songs and dancing. So basically a little and not so intelligent but entertaining, probably in a very massy way. um, so yeah, so my father's lectures often became very, I mean, they used to be very painful. But much later, even during my art college days, I would probably issue certain books from the library. And maybe whatever number of weeks that you're supposed to keep it with you. And one wouldn't have really bothered to go through those books. And suddenly one fine day, my father would ask a question from maybe one of those books, which somehow would be relevant to maybe the project that I'm working on, or otherwise randomly also. And then obviously I'll not have any answer because I haven't read the book, but my father has gone through it. And then he'll be like saying this very lovely thing that it's like, if you don't read all the books that you're, or if you don't read at all, then না তুমি রঙের মিস্ত্রি হবে, তুমি আর্টিস্ট হতে পারবে না। রঙের মিস্ত্রি মতলব পেন্ট কি মিস্ত্রি। So the difference between artist and a mistri is, mistri would know how to, I mean, all the technicalities of how to paint properly, how to use the material, whatever. But you'll not have any content in it, and if you don't, then you will never be artist. তুমি রঙের মিস্ত্রি হয়েই থাকবে। So I that means I didn't have quite a according to me those days as a child, quite a happy childhood. But it was fabulous growing up in that house, because today when people ask that, so tell us more about your coming out story, because that is a most happening thing when you invite any LGBTQI individual or artist or whoever person. The very basic question would be, share your experience of coming out or coming out stories, because that is the more masaledar stories, no? Because how the society never accepted, and kitna helplessness, and I think that probably is always liked or understood by people, or people looking out for that. But for me, I say one thing, that unfortunately, I don't have a coming out story, because my parents never kept a closet in the house. There was no closet for me in the house. So I was, I think, one of the very few privileged ones who grew up very naturally and normally, not inside any closet. It was when I stepped out of the house, I went to art college. I mean, after my school days, is what then that's when I realized that it's actually not that easy. I've had a very easy childhood, but college was not that easy because, in spite of the fact that art colleges and art schools are supposed to be very, very progressive and open-minded, but still people were, not all of them were that open enough to accept things. So at times one had to sort of lie about one's identities. I mean, one had to pretend to be heterosexual, but soon enough I realized that there is no point. I mean, it's pointless for someone like me to even try to uh, behave like a heterosexual or so-called normal guy, because all my childhood I have always behaved like a girl. So yeah, so I had to give up, and obviously I did have some incidents which are probably not that pleasant, but yeah, but overall I think it was good fun growing up in Calcutta in art college. And yeah, and my so I would share one slide, I mean two slides from my Calcutta days. I don't have any pictures. So the influences, as Sushmita asked. Okay. Okay, so this is, can you see my screen? Yeah. So this is a picture which I would have been 5, 6 probably, or maybe even younger, or first standard maybe. I don't know. I looked so cute. So this is my mother, and this is another Mohalla Porshi auntie. I used to call her Jima. We always, Jima is Jethima, matlab Jethji's wife in terms of relationships. So, and she used to spoil me because as a child I would always be attracted towards girly clothes, frocks. Huh? Kids used to wear frocks. So my mother would be like, "But why do you want frock?" And this lady, she would keep buying me frocks, huh? And then she would make sure that, "Acha, kine diyechi? I have bought you this frock. Now you'll have to wear it, huh? You can't just not wear it." So she would, she had made me wear those girly clothes and roam around. So I think I was one of the very few lucky ones to be born in a very strange sort of neighborhood where women were very supportive.
It's super cute, yeah.
Yeah. So this is one of the very few pictures of our school play where me, Ranjita, and for Kritika, this is Ranjita, how she used to be then. And this is me. And this is the other friend, Shobhik, who is a mainstream Bengali filmmaker now. This is Pratap. Kritika knows all of them. And they all know all you guys. All of them know. Okay, so after college, I came to NID. So should I take a break here, Sushmita? You have some specific questions about NID?
Nah, just, you're on a flow, go for it.
Oh, okay.
Ekdom.
Okay. Anything you want to add or ask during my childhood days in school or whatever?
No, I'm good. Let's carry on.
Okay. So, yeah, so after I reached NID, we went through communication studies where Sushmita, Kritika, we were all together, no? Sitting through Tridip's amazing classes, lectures. And and several seminars taking place in NID, which is supposed to be teaching us, initiating us into lateral thinking. Somebody's speaker is on, and there is some radio play going on. Something. Thank you. Okay, so at NID, I realized how lucky I was to have a father like my father. You know, all his lectures actually started making sense after I went to NID. That they were all relevant, and there and there I realized that, oh god, so NID, I mean, whatever NID is teaching or telling us to do, my father has been trying for many years to do the same, which as a child growing up in a middle class Calcutta in 80s did not really understand. But anyways, when we are kids, we don't really understand. Now, sab badi baate. Just imagine when my friends' fathers, they'll play with them cricket. And once my father had he broke his leg. So he was at home, bedridden for, I think, 2, 3 months. Those days it used to take 3 months bed rest. And my life was like hell. Now this man is there 24/7. So at times I'll be like, no, enough of padhai likhai, parashna hoyeche, let's play. And I thought that, okay, he's not able to play, get up. So he will let us go out and play. You know what that game was? We were doing natak, we are playing, and my father is actually enacting the Indian history. I still remember it was, we are playing out the Mughal era. So can you imagine how irritating, as a child who just wanted to dress up like Helen and dance and do makeup, and then you have a father who is, when we are traveling across the country, will always be traveling with this atlas book. So wherever the train is traveling through, my father would say that, okay, now we have reached this part of the country, and this is how the soil is, and these are the crops grown here, everything. So it's like geography. And also in West Bengal board, we had this thing called map pointing. So they'll give a world map and a map of India, and there'll be questions that, oh, this crop is grown in which parts of the country. So you'll have to draw on the map, and which city is where. So many times I would challenge my teachers that, if he or she, he only, because I was in a boys' school, if he would have cut even 1 mark from my map pointing, I would challenge my teacher that up map leke aao or dikhao. And obviously, I always used to draw as a child. So I would be better than them because they were not into drawing. So I would challenge them, not otherwise. Everything else was ठीक है, fail करा दो, because I have always been very pointless. I mean, I've not failed. Mathematics was the only subject which, uh, till date, I don't understand, and hence I don't have a retirement fund or savings retirement money. So coming back to NID days, I think this journey of identity, I think, got a shape and form at NID, I would say, because I think as a country also we were going through a transition in terms of the LGBTQI plus movement also got this new term into being, called the transgenders. And suddenly, but then I think very few people in Calcutta like me who were actually looking for identities, we came across this term called Rupantar Kami, which is the Bengali word for transgenders, in this magazine called Shananda, edited by Aparna Sen. So, and I can't remember which year, probably 88, maybe, if I'm not mistaken. So, she had written an article on homosexuality. Um, um, I can't recall the name of the article, but yeah. And then while reading that article in school, we discussed, all four of us. It's like, this is the term. Eita Amra, huh? Finally, we got a term which we would comfortably identify with, or we understood. That is something close to what is going on in our heads. So at NID, I met some great friends and women I would look up to. One of them is, of course, Sushmita. And I'm not saying this just because she's presenting it or she's interviewing me. But Sushmita, Kritika, Kritika Heshona, then Rashmi Kurian. These were very few. Kavita Arvind, Tanuja. These were like very, that's Kavita and Tanuja is not there. Parul. Parul, you remember? Guys, Parul Galot, no? She's in Dubai as well now. So these were very attractive. And so I would say all this while during my childhood, during my school days and my art college days, the ideal woman would be in my head would be probably the Sri Devis and the kind of makeup, the styling, which was atrocious. But now, from looking back, it might not be the best thing to do. But yeah, those days that was the benchmark probably for the people who had only access to the popular Hindi cinema or the commercial stuff. But then after I joined NID, I would say these are the women who were played a very important role in my life to sort of change the idea of what a woman should be or what a woman is, right? So these were very attractive, very empowered, intelligent, smart women. Okay, I've run out of words. Sushmita, if you want to add some more words, you can.
Why don't we change the topic from the women? Seriously, let's talk about just NID and the fact that NID is in a pretty conservative city. So it's a bit of a contrast. Tell us about in and out. What was the experience? Kolkata, we all know, it's a slightly different liberal society. And then, Ahmedabad's not that. But NID itself was a bit of a microcosm. Tell us about the contrast from your point of view.
Okay, sure. Thank you for shutting me up. Talking about the women I still love. I'll always be in love with.
We love you, but let's move on.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so should we go through some of the slides at NID? I mean, slides as in I'll not be sharing my classroom assignments or work. I would be sharing one of the very few Pradip posters, which I think one of the very few things that made me popular at NID. I used to make these huge Pradip posters. We all know what pre-diploma presentation is. For people from NID, they all know. Even the students I've taught, they don't have pre-dip, but they're aware of the pre-diploma presentations. So let me share that. Okay, so this is my batch, the AP. Then now it's called PG. No, I think MDes, Master of Design. Now it is called MDes. So this was my batch. So this is, can you guys recognize who all are these? This is Praveen.
I can recognize Sheshadri, Lolita, Ramnik.
Okay.
The other two seem a little tougher to
Praveen Mishra. This is Praveen Mishra. This is Sanjay Rajput.
Sanjay Rajput, okay.
This is Lolita for sure. Who is here with us today? This is Sheshadri. Yeah. So these are some of the pre-diploma presentation posters. That's Nilanjan's pre-dip poster. This is Servo. Amit Bendre, and this was, I think, Rochna's industrial training presentation, Chilo. She worked for Kabhi Khushi,
wow.
Sharmishta Roy's happened.
Wow. That's Lolita's. And that's
Yeah.
Poshun's.
Ha, ha.
We should play a game of Guess Who.
Yeah, I thought. Can you recognize these two?
Lakra.
Lakra. And
And
the other one,
Seshu.
Sheshadri. Or
Yeah,
Seshu. Yeah.
Sheshadri.
Oh, God.
This is Pushpendra and Sushmita. Okay, this was the very famous VC dance. My first ever performance in public, dressed up as Helen. So this was, I think, one of the most important events in my life. We have Ramneek. Okay, that's about it. These are all the NID fun time pictures. But now coming back to the what you asked, Sushmita, about the contrast inside and outside. I mean, what NID was. Well, I have a very mixed opinion or experience at NID. I think those days people didn't really care about, I mean, who you are, I mean, your identity or sexuality or preferences and all. But I'm not sure if it was that I don't know, it was very mixed, you know. You still had people who would be uncomfortable having someone like me being around. And why I emphasized on the women, because I think the girls at NID, be it like seniors or you know, my classmates or contemporaries, they were, I think, the most comfortable with my presence, having me around. But many of the boys, that they might not have shown it or projected it, but quite a few of them were really uncomfortable, not so comfortable with having me around. That I realized much later, because when we connected one on one in future, I mean, out of NID, after we, you know, passed out of NID. But outside world, I would say I've had a very different experience. When I have experienced Ahmedabad very differently. There was a time when I used to call Ahmedabad as the gay capital of India, because the way people would, men would cruise around, and not only men. I'm talking about cruising. When one is talking about cruising, even girls would cruise for men on their scooties, and I'm talking about the local Gujaratis. So this is probably, again, there has to be a disclaimer. Absolutely my experience and my opinion of a city and its people. It has got nothing to do with a generalization of the people and the society or the city, because I'm sure there might be some people from Ahmedabad, but then, yeah, of course, I mean, by default, the way we look at the city or we experience a city is different from the Aam Janta, who would uh, have finished their dinner by 9 o'clock and hit the bed by 10:30, because they have to wake up. Kavita, nothing against you guys who have um, kids and pets at home. But yeah, by default, we would always explore, because the society never really uh, offered us anything. So we had to fend for ourselves, right? In the heteronormative structures or societies or families, if a boy or a girl is not able to find the suitable partner till a certain age, the ma baap, I mean, parents, uncle, aunt, mohalle wala, everybody, the whole you know, the whole system will go out looking for a appropriate partner or suitable partner for them. We don't have such opportunities, luxuries. Hence, I mean, what the society has given us is this I would say in a very Hindi filmy term, ये दो पल की जो pleasure है उसको हिंदी में क्या बोलते हैं? खुशी नहीं. What is pleasure का हिंदी? Um,
You're asking the wrong crowd here.
yeah, you're the wrong person. Okay, जो दो पल की जो खुशियाँ और जो वासना, no, वासना is lust. Anyways, so whatever little bits of pleasure that we can get, I mean, that's what the society has not really given us, but there are sort of areas where one can go and fend for oneself. So from that perspective, we see a different picture of any city or any country or any culture, I would say. So absolutely from that perspective, whatever I'm saying, so it is not about generalizing any community or any city. Okay, so I always thought, because outside when I'll roam around with my local Gujarati friends, I mean, sisters would be the politically correct word. It's like out and open. I mean, there was nothing to hide. We can just flirt with anybody and try to seduce any man on the streets. But then I think the rural parts of the country is probably like that, maybe, if I'm not mistaken. But I think that gave me the understanding that we in the bigger cities, or the so-called educated middle class of the country, are more inhibited, because with education what comes is inhibitions also, right? Log kya sochenge, ye karoge to this will result in, because this rational thinking which education puts in our heads translates into making us more inhibited, maybe. So sorry. So yeah, that's why I would say that the outside was more fun, and but while saying that it was more fun, there was still no option of getting into a serious sort of relationship of any sorts. But then I'm very thankful to my I don't know, to the stars or whoever has designed my life, that certain characters are sort of planted in different phases of my life, who are sort of being the pointers for me to sort of wait and look back and think about what all one has done and what all needs to be done. So similarly, I had a friend in Ahmedabad who was staying with his boyfriend. There now, they shifted to, I don't know if Sushmita knew, Dibendu. He worked with Times of India. I told you, no, when you were with Economic Times.
Yeah.
Also, Dibendu was also with Economic Times. Yeah, you met him. So Sameer and Dibendu, they have been partners for, I think, more than 25 years now. I think 30 years almost. That was the first gay couple, as in, like, for the first time one was realizing, one experience that you walk into a household where it was like not the heteronormative house where there is a husband and there is a wife, but this house is as beautiful, or rather more beautiful and well managed and well decorated than any heterosexual household. And many experiences like this, that for the first time I realized that two biological men can also form a family, and they can also live like a husband wife, because we all grew up in houses, and all our relatives everywhere, uncle, auntie, chacha, chachi, they're always a man and a woman and children. So that is like set in our heads so much that even now when people have problems, I mean, at least my friends and my contemporaries, when they have a problem in transitioning from addressing me as him to her, I mean, I don't really blame or take it personally, because it's not their fault. Even I'm transitioning. I'm also in the process, in life, realizing who I am and understanding. I mean, there is no end to understanding anything. So So yeah, I don't feel bad or sort of get angry, rago kori na kichhi na, because you can't. I mean, these are ideas and value systems which are just there in us. And I think the design education, which pretty much, I mean, primarily teaches us questioning, right? So I would say, if I have to summarize my stay at NID or education at NID, why I'm not sharing too many, I mean, work samples or projects at NID is because I think it's not those projects. The projects would, again, I would quote my father, that the projects are sort of then keeping it at a very mystery level, keeping the NID education at a mystery level and not taking it to the much bigger and higher level that it is. At least those days it used to be. So I would say that NID has spoiled everything for me. Because ignorance is bliss in this country. At least, I mean, I have lived in this country all my life, so I can make a statement like this: that ignorance is bliss for many people. And then once you go to a place like NID, you're just spoiled. I mean, your life is spoiled after that, because then ignorance does not exist then for you. Then it becomes, I mean,
Okay.
if you want to ignore things or keep your eyes, just keep not look at things that are happening around you, or anything for that matter, that'll become a problem in yourself. And it's like a constant conflict that you are trying to undo the NID sort of value system. So that ways, I think NID has just, if I'm allowed to use the word screwed my life. The rest of my life, I'm screwed because I went to that place, but I'm very lucky that I went to that place.
Okay, Podu. So we are at the top of the hour. We've been in conversation Adda for 60 minutes.
What?
Why don't, yes. So we max have arrow 30 minutes. So the
Okay.
question, I think, let's take a bit of a heat, temperature check with everyone on the call. So guys, you have a few options. We talk a little bit about the work that Pradipta does. Or do we just continue to really talk about his journey and specifically, the work that he's done with regards to being the LGBTQ plus champion and a huge voice in India? I don't think we'll have a chance to cover everything. Let's just try and cover one of those. So quick temperature check. Which of the two? Latter? I can see Kavita saying latter. Okay.
Oh, shit.
Chalo, to
There are a lot of questions which I
actually, maybe this is a good time. Let's do a couple of questions.
Yeah.
One was,
you want me to play the show reel quickly that covers, like, it's a 5-minute thing.
Okay, let's play the show reel and then we kind of
it. So
then we get back to talking about your journey.
Should I play it?
Yeah, go ahead, you play it.
Yeah, I'm so sorry that wait, I'm so sorry. I did not realize that I've taken so long. It is already, sorry.
Don't apologize. It's awesome. Honestly, like, when they, God, I'm talking a lot in Bangla. Mugdho hoye shunchi mane, we've been enamored by the stories and the anecdotes. Pudo voice ashche na.
Oh. Why sharing me? How do I go to share?
You have to go back to share screen and click on the left hand side button that says share sound. Stop sharing, share again.
Okay. Yeah. Huh? Okay.
But sound gets automatically shared, no, with the screen?
Hopefully, yeah.
You have to increase
You have to
increase the volume. I can hear something.
Yeah,
that's the horn in the outside the window.
Yeah, now we can hear.
Very good.
Perfect.
मुझे लगा you're a loser. I'm gay, not desperate.
काजल जैसे लगते नहीं, बिपाशा जैसे दिखते। मैं बिपाशा।
Please come in. Do you live here in Dheeraj Enclave itself?
I live everywhere.
That's awesome.
Back.
So, Podu, let's talk about specifically your films that you made, which had a very strong LGBTQ plus theme. Tell us about finding the voice and the narrative, which you had to get it right because it's so close to heart. So talk us through that.
Okay. I think, thank you for asking very specific question. Otherwise, I would have talked about everything but this. So, yeah. So finding the right voice is, I think, as we all know, it's important, but I think it's a bigger um, challenge or struggle for any filmmaker as well. So my first film, I wrote it as the whole narrative was a sort of clips from different lives, like a heterosexual. So there is this desperation which ties all these stories together, right? That's the main emotion, which is going through like different sexualities, like a gay person, a trans woman, a bisexual man, a heterosexual man, everybody. And because I think that was for the first time one was trying to really understand what one wants to talk about. And I suppose it takes several stories and several films for a filmmaker to find the right voice and getting it right. So over a period of time, after my second film, Edie, which was shot in Calcutta, that's the longest film that I have made, then every film sort of added one word into my head, or my understanding of the voice, or what I want to really say through my films, right? So one of the most important aspects, I would say, is my efforts of normalizing it, the queer lives in Indian context. Right. So I don't. There are many films which are made in India about queer themed, stories, narratives, and they end up being not all of them. Quite a few of them end up being again telling the sob story of somebody. Okay, I mean it is important, but when you look at the heteronormative society, not every filmmaker is talking about, when you talk about making a film about a woman, it's not about a woman how tortured she is in society. No, there are different stories about women. I mean, if you talk about an empowered woman story, is also a story which is talking about women. So similarly, when we talk about LGBT themed or queer themed films, it's not only about their sad stories. So my way of telling stories is that it could be any situation. It has to be, first it has to be a story in itself, a humane story, and then the characters, they just happen to be whichever way their orientations are. And now I would say I have added another thing also, because see, Edhi as a story, it's based on my school friends. So Ranjita played herself in the story, and obviously you fabricate. I mean, you weave a interesting narrative around some scenarios from your real life and your the real characters. But that most of the filmmakers, they always get inspired by characters, real life characters, and they weave a story around them, right? So for me, it's in a way which in India I feel, as a designer or a creative individual or an artist, I feel what we lack as a culture is the is documentation, which is so important in any culture, and that is one thing that we lack in India. So it is my way of documenting queer lives. That's how I call it, through cinema, but you are documenting the lives. So in Edhi, there is one shot where the film was shot in 2013 in Calcutta. That was the time when the Aadhaar department had actually recognized, that was the first government department to recognize transgenders as third gender. That was the only Sarkari form which had male, female, and others. And Ranjita had filled up the form saying others me, because that was the only um, uh, sarkari document which would support that. I mean, not even getting into the Aadhaar argument that if it's right, wrong, whatever. But then that was, and I don't know if it was a political decision or anything of, adding this another bracket where you would probably excite one community to sort of fill up the other form. So I have documented that later on. So she was one of the very few trans activists who had changed all her legal documents as transgender. But later on, I mean, because every culture has a political context, and there would be many changes in history. History is always retold again and again based on, I mean, whoever is in power and whichever ideologies. But as creative individuals, what we can what we can do, our little bits, is keep documenting whatever is there. So some point when the history has been rewritten, and maybe a lot of people's names and their achievements, their existences, or even the fact that they existed might be deleted, but at least our work would still document those. So someday, I'm not saying, by saying this, I'm not saying that, oh, someday people would find my films which are world famous or world politic, nothing like that. Just simple, it's documenting something. So yeah.
That's awesome. Looking into the future, so in some ways the films are your little legacy. Let's look at the next 20 years. And very quickly, what are you looking forward to? Like, what is it that you're really excited about? And what are the things that are keeping you awake? And it could be anything, like, about, identity and what's happening with LGBTQ+, or just, design education, the world.
Okay. Very difficult question, Shusmita.
That's why I sent it to you by email 5 hours back.
Oh, 5 hours. As if, that's like good enough time for you, not for me. I'm this very spontaneous, fluid person. 5 hours. You cannot give me 5 hours time. Okay, no. Jokes apart. If I have to tell you honestly, I have no idea, in the next 20 years, because if again one is allowed to make statements which might be translated into some kind of political color, then am I allowed to and give honest answer here?
Yeah, of course.
Why
Please
not?
go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
So
only
right
us.
now, I think I don't know. I have reached a point. I mean, looking at where we are all heading, worries me. I mean, it's really worrying, and I get very disheartened at times that if this is the direction that we are heading at, then probably you don't even need the creative professions or professionals, right? I mean, not to speak of the fact, by saying this, I'm not negating the the anti-intellectual attitude, or the anti-intellectual stand that by large the country has taken or taking. I'm not negating it or saying that it's not justified. It's not unjustified. It's, I think, high time for us, the so-called, people who are who at least considers themselves to be in a noble profession. It's high time that we look back, we face the mirror, that and ask ourselves that have we actually been able to make any difference to anybody's lives? If we haven't, then probably rethink. I mean, our design education has taught us to rethink at any point of time, right? So So it's never late to start from, starting from scratch. And I think I genuinely believe that, again, with disclaimer that it's absolutely my opinion, that maybe design has remained. I mean, there are exceptions, but by and large, in this country, design is probably a very cosmetic department where we are. Again, I'm not accusing the design community, fraternity here, not at all, because we are also a product of the same middle class society, which has rather feudal values we have grown up with. And negating all of that is it's a big challenge. And one NID education, with all due respect to the education at NID, still it's not enough to probably change our, undo our values, the values that we grow up with. And hence, this transition from him to her as an identity will also take a longer time, because, I mean, I don't mind. Again, I'm not attacking or accusing my friends not, using her for as my pronoun. But what I'm trying to say here is that that's how it is. Something, I mean, the shadi, bia, and the heteronormative norms have become so jayez that the rest is become najayez. Similarly, when we grow up with certain understanding, with not directly, the parents don't feed all that information into our heads, but then we are born and we grow up in a society, so there are a lot of influences. So if we grow up with certain ideas about a certain minority, but after we grow up, we go to college, we interact with people from that community, we interact with people who are educated, who are doing great jobs, and who are progressive thinking, we change our notions, right, about those communities. It comes to us very naturally, like the way we grow up with a sister and then who has the same surname, and she is also wearing shorts and playing with me. And then suddenly one fine day when she gets married, we promptly transition into calling her as Mrs. So and so, and accept the image of the same sister who has stopped wearing shorts. She's just probably wearing saris. When you go to her in-laws' house, probably she's using pallu, doing ghungta, henna, covering her face. So we don't go around calling her as still Miss, no? We don't call our brother-in-law as uncle. We don't say Jamai Babu ke keman achen kaku. We don't say that. We don't call our father uncle, or mother, we don't call her Didi. Comes to us naturally. Then if the the transgenders, for them, if we are not able to sort of transition, take this step, then I think everything else is also, I think pretty much by and large, it talks about the kind of society that we are in, or rather the mindset that we are in, that something which we does not occur to us that is normal stays abnormal, or for some people maybe not abnormal but casual. And but then the fact is that a huge large part of that community is still suffering. I mean, the trans community suffered, was the most vulnerable during the lockdown in India. I mean, the trans prostitutes, their rosy roti was stopped. I mean, when there are no shops open, where would the hijras go and sort of take their money from? So, yeah. Sorry, I've taken a lot of time. Yeah.
That's fine.
Did that answer your question?
Just a few minutes. You did in a rather candid manner.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of chatter on the chat. Quickly opening it to the floor. Any questions? Now's the time. So I think there's one from Kritika saying, we want to see some of your paintings. Podu, not sure if you have them handy. Otherwise, do post them on Facebook.
I will. No, they're already been posted on Facebook. They're there. Today it's me. Just enjoy me, darlings.
Okay.
That's
And
what you do when you don't have things handy.
okay, with that, should we wrap the Adda? Anuj, Rebhav, Kavita, Kritika, thoughts, anything?
I mean, speak a little bit more about your journey after NID. Like, where all did you work? How was your work journey? A little bit more.
Okay. Okay, so I would say that I'm one of the very few lucky ones to have started freelancing soon after I passed out of NID. First job was with Ram Mohan. I said yes because I get to work with Ram Mohan, the legend. And I stayed there only for 10 months. Could not go beyond 10 months. Then I started freelancing. Started with Seshu and Sundar Studio. They were also starting their studios then. And yeah, since then I've been freelancing and been lucky enough to get work. And as Shusmita had written in the emails that about the work, the projects that I say yes to and I say no to, that is, I feel important. Again, that might not be reality for all of us. So I did Rang De Basanti storyboard because I thought the script was fabulous. And some films better not to talk about, like Hey Baby and Kam Bakht Ishq. So I went, I mean, I started and I left because I mean, still my name is still there in those films. But yeah, and so other than pre-production for many films and television commercials like Oni's, Anirudh Sen's, all his ad films, I storyboard them for him. And now gradually I have restricted my storyboarding services also only restricted to certain directors. Like Oni, whenever he says, I'll say yes. And maybe a couple of others like Rakesh Om Prakash Mehra, maybe Habib Faisal, because he's a fabulous writer. But mostly whenever I get calls from, if I'm allowed to use any Era Gera Natu Khaira, because it's very irritating when the ADs call you, they have like zero respect. They're like, okay, paisa de rahe hain, bol, kitne ka, kitna legi types, huh? Then they'll be like, yeah, but it's very expensive. And then you just drop names like, you know, but who is the director? I only work for Rakesh, who is Rakesh sir. When you say Oni sir, sir, that sir is been exists after their names, no, in the mainstream industry. And when you the AD will hear that, oh, acha, this person is calling them by their names, acha, suddenly the tone changes. They'll be like, yeah, but you know, it is we actually don't have budget. I'll be like, yeah, so I'll give you numbers where people would do it for much lesser money. And yeah, you deal with it. If you're happy with it, great, good for you, good for your director. I don't care really. And another, when I'm telling you, giving the anecdotes about how expensive I am, I do work for free as well. I mean, I do production design for feature films where my friends who are making films and they don't have budget, I'll do their production design for those films, because as creative people, as designers, it's not only creating market, no, it is when you are to bring in change, you'll have to make sure that those voices which you think or you believe that should be heard, we need to do something about making those voices audible, even if it is working for free for them. So be it. I mean, if I tell you the rates in which I have animated for Devdutt's the recent project, which was the last animated clip in my showreel, suddenly the design fraternity would say, like, oh my God, how can you even say yes to that kind of minuscule peanuts budget? No, but it was, I think it is a meaningful, in today's context, it's very important that series was important.
Udu,
Hence,
can I ask
did-
a question? Sushmita,
Yeah.
can I ask one question? Vaibhav here.
Yeah, who is
Yes.
this?
Go for it.
Vaibhav, Podu.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
I was going to ask about Devdutt only. Like, how
Yeah,
has your
please.
collaboration with Devdutt been? And
Oh, yeah.
your teaching. I don't think you spoke much about that. You go every year to NID. At
Yeah.
least we used to meet almost every year at NID. Kandivali
I
में
meet
नहीं मिलते थे
everybody
हम
at
लोग.
NID only.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
हम लोग बोरीवली
Okay.
में नहीं मिलते हैं.
Yeah.
So, like that teaching thing, no, where you make them, like whether it was drawing or whatever subject you take, your relation with the students, how you inspire them, and Devdutt story.
Yeah.
You collaborated many times with him.
Yeah. Earlier we did one fabulous project based on the fact that nobody invests in animation in India, right? So I told Devdutt that animated series would be very expensive, and unless and until somebody has that kind of money, you don't get into that business, because when you are dealing with the big, big fishes like Cartoon Network and all, then you probably don't have that kind of a support system in this country. So then me and Devdutt promptly said, we'll make an animated series, which is, I took it to Shekhar also, I interviewed him to keep the interview in a part of a presentation for that project. So he termed it as a below poverty line animation. Because by doing the animation, none of the studios will close down. And it'll be the most sasta animated series. But then it was for Amar Chitra Katha, and Amar Chitra Katha, the company itself, organization, was going through, I think, a turmoil. That was the transition phase when Future Group had bought over Amar Chitra Katha, some shares or whatever. Anyways, that never took off. So it was called Devlok then, but then Devlok happened as a series on Epic Channel much later. The first episode also, me and Priyankar, we illustrated. And Devdutt's, the collaboration with Devdutt started, the collaboration started much later, but we've been friends since I would say 2004, ever since I shifted to Bombay. Shusmita, Devdutt is actually very close friends with Dibendu. So I used to meet him at Dib's house parties. And then later on, when he started animated content and all, he would always come to me to collaborate. For a change, it has been released because for the longest time while working on it, I thought, Sony Television has given up on this project and they'll never ever, put it on air. But finally it happened. So, but it's very limited animation. Hardly
But
any animation.
Devlok was very good, no? When it was released on Epic, it did very well, very well.
Very, very well. But yeah, that's how it was with a lot of noble ideas. Mahindra and Mahindra was, I think, started the Epic channel. But then unless and until you have enough money to run something meaningful in this country for 10, 15 years, forget about making money, it will not get us any returns. So that's the Devdutt bit. And the teaching part of it, yes, it's been, I think, 17 years now. I've been teaching at NID since 2003 was the first class I had taken at NID, and it's fabulous. I think that's still the the only design school where nobody really filters you. Your teaching and what you are teaching, what you are saying, and in which tone you are telling it, saying whatever you have to say. So I look at it very differently. I am like, whatever fundas of probably drawing and all, I might have some different observations in terms of looking at drawing or looking at animation. But in today's world, all the students can Google it. Yeah, there is hardly any new funda that we can teach them or new technique that we can teach them, because what if they don't want that technique, want to learn that technique? So I think what is more important is if I can at least make some of them start thinking about who they are and or why they are. As in, why they are, they don't have to be a designer. They can just be a homemaker or a parent or a teacher or anything. But why are they that? That is, I think, the very basic question. And nobody stops me at NID, It's the most comfortable and fabulous place to teach till date. And when we say that we need to bring in, and Sushmita, the NID phase, no, which I started presenting, that started in 98, but that's still on, huh? I am probably the only student who has paid only for 5 years. And I'm still learning at NID. I mean, it just looks from a distance, it looks like, oh, one is going and teaching, but I'm still learning. For me, that the NID education is still on. I'm still studying at NID. I still feel like a student at NID. When I'm sitting in the lawns, I would, I'm still some kilos extra here and there, but I
Mess
still
food is
feel
free,
like
no, now.
Huh?
For visiting faculty, mess food is free.
Mess food is free, yes, yes, and nobody would ask question if you ask for too many chicken legs at the mess. No, but then this mess wala is fabulous. He is not like Pappu Bhai, who would keep smiling at you, and no matter how many times you ask, crib, plead, he would never give you one more extra chicken piece. Sorry, enough.
Okay.
I think we have bitched about Pappu Bhai. But then it's our NID community. They need to know, the students need to know who crib about this mess food. They need to know that what all we have experienced. We experienced in our first year, and Vaibhav, Kavita, you have experienced for many years, Anuj. You have experienced for
Remember
many years.
Neeta Pawar finding the rat in the
Rat,
achar?
yeah, I know.
That was Pappu Bhai's way of feeding us non-veg.
I had to play so much politics to get this new guy in.
And Anuj, it's so amazing. No, they have maintained for many years.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Cool. So
we should get them on MGD, Anuj. Our mess guys.
The mess guys.
Yeah.
Pappu Bhai to the next one.
Ask Pappu Bhai the uncomfortable question.
वो चूहा कहाँ से ढूंढा वो बताओ हमको.
थोड़ा और दही मिलेगा पप्पू भाई को.
दही. Okay, guys. Anuj, last words.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I would ask Kavita to do a small vote of thanks.
My God, these are all very difficult.
It's very formalized and it's all structured. Podhu, it's like streamlined.
Yeah.
Podhu, how wonderful has it been to just, sit here and listen to you and to see what a fierce woman you are and to learn about your journey through growing up in a very supportive community. The sort of harsh love that I think that your father subjected you to, it is harsh love in his own way. And to sort of see how though while growing up, you were always sort of sure of who you were, to see how that came into being something so solid, that came into being this confident, gorgeous creature that you are, to get a glimpse of the films that you've been working on and how you're trying to sort of put out these larger ideas in a community which is still that's like when you said that, it's difficult to sort of sum up how NID has been for you. And Sushmita mentioned how NID is like a microcosm. I really feel nothing really has changed, whether it's NID or the world at large or India for that matter. We're not really that liberal. We just sort of are better at pretending to be, you know what I mean? And in the face of that, I think you're one hell of a fierce person, and you're putting out work that raises questions that I'm hoping will allow more people to find their own, parents to be more supportive of their children, and schools and educators at large be more compassionate and empathetic to the younger people. Because these questions, I think we are sort of transitioning to a slightly, I would say, a 0.5% more aware world. I'm not saying accepting world yet, it's not, but at least there's awareness. And I suppose it will take people like you, women like you, to sort of make this happen. It's been a dream listening to you, and Sushmita, you've been awesome. I've loved the Bengali banter between the two of you. It felt like dishing into a big bowl of juicy rasgullas. That's my Calcutta association. It was so gorgeous. That lilt in the way you sort of bantered was lovely. Thank you, Podu. I'm sure you're going to continue to blaze this awesome path that you've sort of made for yourself.
Thank you.
Love you.
Love you.
Kritika, you want to say something?
I want to say something. And it's nothing that I'd ever planned, actually. I've always loved you in NID.
You were my first crush at NID, Kritika.
And will always be.
Of course.
But what I want to say is, I think today's, what you shared with us was so, I mean, Kavita just captured it beautifully. And I just want to say, I was, thinking along the same lines, but it was very moving and a learning experience for me. So, I mean, I said I always loved you, but I think today I feel like I connected with you again at a deeper, more profound level. I learned things about you that I should have actually known. And you just sort of wove the story so beautifully about from your childhood and how this journey has been for you. And I realized that no matter how sort of open and liberal and forward thinking we think we are, but we still always have some form of blinders on, like society conditioning or your education or all of that. There's always some level of blinders on, and you don't realize it because in your mind you think, you don't have any of that, but you do. And, I realized that when you were talking today and that I myself have been, and for you, and I myself have been prejudiced in so many ways without realizing it, and in my interactions with you. And for you to have still loved me and accepted me and everybody else requires a sort of tenacity, and kindness and generosity, with the love that you've never gotten angry. You've never, I think you were just forced to become this generous, tenacious person because of who you are and because of, and that you still had to be who you are and still give the love that you had to give. So I think that's just incredible that it's something that, I mean, it's such a huge development that a person undergoes that I think what I'm trying to say is that I have so much respect for you. So yeah.
Thank you.
That's wonderful from both of you. Thank you for summing it up so beautifully. Pradipta, you wonderful. It's lovely to hear your story. When she was saying, I realized that you have so much love for people. You can have all the reasons to be angry for the way you probably have seen the life, and we can't see it that way. But you've always been loving, and there has been barely any negativity in you. And it's fantastic to hear your viewpoint. And thank you, Sushmita, for bringing this out and being part of it. I would just ask Tanas to stop the live so that we can then carry on if we want to talk more or just say hello to each other.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Tanas, you can stop the live.
Is it still live?
It's still live. I don't think there's... Sajid just put up this picture and there's nobody there.
Then we have to act very decent.
Sajid is actually not there. It's only Tanas.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Wait,
more stories.
Anuj, you can't, you were still live on FB, right? You can't, yes.
Yeah,
you don't have host controls?
So,
we don't have. I only have co-host control.
So maybe...
Then I'll just message. I'll message.
Yeah. Until then, because we have to
meanwhile,
behave ourselves a little more.
So meanwhile, I can also add on as the other women in his life to Podu. Of course, all of you are like the whole bunch of women who have been such big inspiration for me
Yeah, yeah,
personally, and I think
she-
I'm
I
the
was,
junior most here.
In Bombay, I was staying in Juhi's house. My initial first month, you remember, couple of months.
Yes, yes, yes. But I think for me, Podu and then Lakra, who's been shy and not come on the screen, you guys have become family.
Yes,
I remember
really,
how
yes.
you came and took over, of course, my broken marriage, but when I was getting married, but the time when I was getting married, how you guys just came and took over my home with my mom as if मेरी सहेलियां आ गई हैं, and my mother and my father and everybody just knew that these are the people in her life who are the most important for her, and you continue to be. So, and I can't thank you enough for all the inspiration, confidence you guys have given me in every way, and keep supporting. I remember once we were sitting in your house and you just turned around and said, "Sab chhod chhad ke tum bas aa jao, hamare sath reh lo." It was such an open-hearted invitation that I know that even today, if I will never be homeless because you're there. So thank you for that love and generosity that you show. It's not been too long. We met in NID, but I don't know. There's something that
I'm wearing
the kind of love.
You remember you gave me this.
Oh my God, I've been looking at them all throughout, and I'm those cut here.
Ask Juhi,
The exact
contact
same
Juhi, now you
ones.
know.
My mother asks me to learn how to wear saris from Podu because she thinks Podu wears better saris than I do.
Oh God.
She's
Thank
like,
you.
listen, look at her and learn from her. See the makeup she does. And I'm like, oh ma, please, okay. I give her the earrings. I give her the sari.
But then when
she
I was
started
learning
young,
how
no?
to do,
She started young, so she had
Yeah,
a lead over
when I
everybody.
was
She had to
learning
lead
how
over all of us. Yeah.
do makeup, Juhi was busy playing basketball, so it's not her fault.
Yeah, that's true. That's
But then,
true. Yeah.
serious notes, Juhi, when you're talking about this house being there for you and a family, I would like to add, because this is a very informal and hamare hi log hain, I think it's high time that we need to question the idea of family also. If
Absolutely. No,
the
I agree.
blood
I completely
relation,
agree.
which is the only family and only people we trust, I think these are all social constructs. Na? Blood
Absolutely.
relation,
Absolutely.
ma-baap, because animal kingdom, animals don't. Oh, we are still live on Facebook. I have to still.
It's okay. Doesn't
be
matter.
politically correct. Yeah, so animal kingdom probably does not have these relationship structures, right? So I think we need to really question, otherwise it becomes wo do dhari talwar hai.
Absolutely.
I mean, we are uncomfortable with a lot of things happening around us, but it starts with the concept of family. माँ बाप अपने अपने होते हैं. So it starts there and then it escalates into a level of मेरा धर्म उसका धर्म. It just goes on from there. My country, your country, and so on and so forth. So I think we need to really, but that'll take a lot of time, I suppose. It'll not come so normally, because I am yet to see in the society where like बच्चों जब छोटे होते हैं ना, माँ अगर बेटे के लिए सोच रही है बहू के बारे में, I have always heard aunties talking about इसको तो अच्छी एक गोरी बहू लेना है, whatever. Nobody yet. I mean, even when we say that we are changing, where have we changed? I mean, none of the mothers ever say. I'm not even saying that transgender bahu. वो तो दूर की बात है. Bahu who is acid victim or a rape victim. I think the basic idea of family is also, I think, very flawed. Personal
very
opinion,
flawed.
Very
absolutely.
strong opinion, but that's how it is, I think. When we are only taking care of our own children just because we have produced them, we are sort of, in a way, I might be wrong, but we are teaching them that only when you have produced something, you own that. You have not produced the world, the nature, the environment, so you don't own it, so you can just screw it. No? So I think that's
so true.
Very strong statement to me.